health problem, but it's a social problem that manifests itself as a health problem. We need to deal with all those social challenges that are exposing these age groups, to HIV infections. I will pause there for now. Thank you.
Sarah, let me bring you in, because over the years, so when it was first identified that there was this pattern of infection trends that was emerging among adolescent girls and young women, and we were seeing the same, as Dr. Kensani has highlighted, amongst older men. At the time there was a sense of shock around what it was revealing about our society. It seems to me that since then we have sort of taken away the emphasis from trying to understand what is driving this pattern socially and actually dealing with it. It often even seems that we're turning a blind eye to the fact that it even exists.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, and really to echo what Dr. Nekasani said, for us to have approximately 1,300 new infections each day, and for us to also see the amount of HIV infections that we're seeing between the ages of 15 to 24 for adolescent girls and young women, and for us to also see an increase in sexually transmitted infections, and also unplanned or unintended pregnancies, tells us that there's I think a bit of a disconnect, right? A disconnect between maybe what we are programming for and what the reality is. And so, as she was saying, this is more of a societal issue or concern that's really manifesting itself now in the health sector, right? As people acquire HIV and begin living their lives with HIV, which doesn't go away, right? So there's an economic impact. There's a strain then on the health system, right, and other systems that are supported, by the government. But really, also, I think what it says to us is that, and I'm so glad this was launched yesterday on World AIDS Day, is that we need to also, I think, call some attention to men, right? Because these adolescent girls and young women aren't just getting themselves infected with HIV. There is a sexual partner. There's someone who they're having sex with who is transmitting the virus to them. And so, we need to think about, yesterday we need to think about, the role of men in our culture, and not just the role of men, but I think all of us collectively, what role do we play in preventing HIV? If you have HIV, making sure that you are taking your pills and trying to be the most, healthy that you can be, right? So that that viral load that you have with HIV becomes, undetectable and then therefore untransmittable. So yesterday during World AIDS Day, there was a campaign that was launched, Better Man for Tomorrow Today, which really was a call to action for the men of South Africa to take responsibility, to step up, to protect their families, to protect themselves, and not just within the health space, but it's a call from various sectors of society. So religious leaders, traditional healers, employers, private sector. Really, it needs to be, I think, a whole of society approach to really be able to change the course and to move the needle on our progress here on HIV here in South Africa.
When it comes to unpacking the role of men in these infections too, do you feel that there are perhaps some issues that we as a country are simply not wanting to pay attention to? And I say this in the context of, on the one hand, we'll have these figures around HIV/AIDS, and then you'll have the release of figures that are looking at teenage pregnancies, and you'll see, quite an alarming number of young people who are not at the age of consent, who are reported to have had pregnancies, and that opens a debate around, abuse, around rape, and again, these are issues that exist in our society. But I'm just curious to know, from observers like yourself, where do you think we are not taking the opportunity to, number one, fully understand what it is that is creating these problems, and number two, to solve them? What do you think is getting in the way of us doing that?
Hi, Cathy, can I come in?
Dr. Musa, I'm going to give you a moment to come in shortly. I want Saira to answer that question for me, because she'll have to leave the conversation early.
Sure. I can actually stay on just for a few more minutes, no problem. So, I think there's a variety of things. Like I said, there's we see that, girls and young women acquiring HIV, becoming infected. This is not happening on their own, right? So in some ways, there's some, I think, allowance, right? There's some sort of maybe grace. There's some sort of ways in which maybe we are turning a blind eye, right? As Dr. Nikasani said, that we know that it's older men who are infecting young women. We also know that there is, in South Africa, there's incredible rates of gender-based violence, right? So, we can, and as you were mentioning, rape, or also underage consent, in terms of again, like if you have a girl who is old enough to get pregnant, that doesn't mean that she's old enough to consent, right? So there's issues of that. I think we have to think about how, what role men and boys play in culture. How are we raising them? Are we raising them to be protectors? How are we raising them to, respect others, right? To respect their communities and protect their communities. How are we raising them to be, good citizens, and to give back to humanity? What are some of those cultures and values? What are some of those values, right? And sort of moral ethics that we're teaching. Again, I think, Dr. Nekasani really hit it on the head when she said the phrase that we're having sort of a cultural and social phenomenon that is then having an impact that we see in the health sector. And so really, I think it's an opportunity for us to reflect, right? To think about what are some of those values, what are some of those messages that, that you're getting at the individual level, the community level, and then, more broadly societal, through media, through education, through religion, all of those things. What are those messages toward men and toward young boys and masculinity? What's being shared, and then what is the impact then that we're seeing as a result?
All right, we're going to continue with the conversation shortly. Dr. Musa, I'll give you a chance to go first when we come back from the 10:30 news headlines.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. In your news headlines, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. Hawks boss Godfrey Lebeya has commended his officers for preventing a planned ATM bombing in Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. 8 judges' secretaries in the High Court in Johannesburg have made an urgent application for an interim interdict to prevent the Office of the Chief Justice from interviewing, shortlisting, or filing judges' secretaries post advertised in October. And the Southern Africa Tourism Services Association has issued an advisory to holiday makers intending to travel to Mozambique to maintain close contact with their tourism service providers. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 14 to the dollar, 23 rand 01 to the pound, and 19 rand 07 to the euro. Markets in Asia have extended gains at the closing bell. The JSE mixed in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are slightly higher this hour. Gold is trading at $2,632, platinum $941 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $72.47 a barrel.
At Buco, we know that every successful building project starts with quality and ends with pride. From small contractors to big builders, we're here to ensure that you have the tools, materials, and support to do the job right the first time. With Buco, you're never building alone. We are right here, ready to make your project a lasting success, from the foundation to paint. For every step and every build, begin with Buco.
Buco. The English are targeting a magnificent day on the pitch, but the Proteas want to send a strong reminder that the Diamond Oval is their home ground. What is summer without cricket? This is the One Day International Series, where summer cricket comes alive. Catch the exhilarating women's first ODI contest, South Africa versus England, this Wednesday 4 December at 13:14. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theater of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We're staying with that conversation, looking at the HIV/AIDS rates in South Africa. We have nearly 8 million people that are currently positive for HIV/AIDS and that are on treatment. Well, maybe not the full 8 million, but certainly South Africa's treatment program has gotten a lot of success over the years with being able to not only absorb as many people as need treatment as possible, but also increasing the awareness around the impact that taking treatment does have when it comes to management of the disease. Dr. Nkensani Ngwashu is Executive Manager, National Strategic Implementation Plan at the South African National AIDS Council. Saira Johnson Qureshi is the Country Director at the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, and Dr. Musa Mangane is Director for HIV at the National Department of Health. So, Dr. Musa, let me then give you a chance to come into this conversation. And of course, on the one hand, you as a department are having to deal with HIV/AIDS from a health management point of view. So how do you ensure that your health facilities are geared up to respond to patients who, number one, perhaps need diagnosis or who need treatment for HIV, but on the other, there's also the awareness that much of what we're dealing with, as has been mentioned by the other guests, is as a result of social culture, a conflation of the social and the cultural, but it's translating itself or manifesting itself as a health issue.
Absolutely, Katie. I think you have well covered that sentiment, and especially the combination between our response to the social matters and the health issues.
Dr. Musa, I'm going to ask you to try and move around a bit. That connection to you is not great at all. And of course, we do want to continue to give you an opportunity to speak and contribute to the conversation. I see some of you have already started sending through your WhatsApp voice notes and messages when it comes to this issue. I'll take them on 086 000 2032. That's where I'll be taking your calls if you want to contribute to this conversation on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. While we try and get Dr. Musa up on a different line, Kensani, let me come back to you. There naturally have been many lessons that South Africa has learnt around the management of HIV/AIDS. When we look into the future and we're looking at a population by and large that is young, that is youth, what do these prevalence rates mean for the future management of the disease for our country?
The high prevalence amongst these age groups, it already means that we are already growing up with a cohort that is further going to need healthcare management, in the future as they move forward. And we've got we are already creating a cohort that will have some sort of impact when it comes to the country at an economic level, because this cohort will be entering, the job workspace, and also at the same time, they will be raising families, their own families themselves. And raising up their own families for themselves, as I've highlighted, that they will need healthcare management, because remember, if you're infected with HIV/AIDS at the current period that we are in, there is no treatment. It's for life. And we know that if it's for life, yes, it does not work like some other chronic diseases. As much as we say you are chronic, but it needs constant management, and you will need to be able to take your treatment, up until you pass on. And that treatment, because it's provided for free, at all the public health facilities, that treatment, as you are receiving it, yes, we've got people, who are growing up in this, and they've reached a certain age now where we call them, let me mention to say that, we say that, these are the elderly people who are also on ARVs. They've been on it for many, many years. There are some of the other effects that comes into place. You find that now you've got a hypertension, you become diabetes, or you will need other additional treatment of that. So it will have an impact on you. And it will also have an impact on the way and the messaging that they will pass to the future generations that will be coming after them. So this is something that we need to get it right, and we need to get it straight from the beginning on, to say that HIV is not a death sentence, and also at the same time that if you adhere to your treatment, you take your medication, it is manageable, and you can live a normal life like any other person, as long as you stick to your medication, but with a main understanding that it is for life. And anything that is for life on an individual, it does have an impact, on the social way that you are going to also live in the future. Not necessarily that, you'll be walking around with anyone reading your status, but it means that, you need to take care of yourself, and you will need to take care of the family that you will have, even if you opt out not to have a family, but you will be interacting with other people. Okay. So this is, yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that contribution, Dr. Kensani. Dr. Musa, I understand you're back on the line, and you, of course, wanted to give us the view from the Department of Health. Go for it.
Absolutely, Cathy. Thank you so much. And I also want to echo the sentiments of our fellow colleagues, Sarah and Dr. Nkwashu, respectively. As you rightfully said, the issue of our health response has got a bearing to the social aspects in particular. So that is why we, as from the Department of Health, we consider the social health determinants that are critical, which has a range of, the personal circumstances that has the impact into person's health and well-being. So that is why, much as we raise awareness for one to be on treatment, we also consider the fact that when you take on a treatment, you need food to be able to take on a treatment and be adherent. You need to be working so that you're able to make provision for your livelihood. So all these critical social determinants for health remains critical in our response. But we can't turn a blind eye on the fact that our response and our fight towards making sure that we end AIDS by 2030 require us to actually consider some of the moral regeneration. That is why we fully support the launch that has actually been done yesterday during the World AIDS Day in terms of better men for health tomorrow, because we recognize that if we bring back our morals, then we have a huge bearing towards reducing the new HIV infection. We have a new bearing to make sure that we protect one another. Dr. Kwashu said it rightfully that these young women that are infected, they are infected by the older men. And that is why we require everyone to work together as a multisectoral response to make sure that we're able to close the gap and respond effectively. That is why we know that for us to reach our second 95, which is to make sure that 95% of people that are living with HIV on ART would require us to make sure that we consider all these social ills, to consider aspects that would actually ensure that everyone, the society, live better, and that would take us to make sure that we're able to close the 1.1 million gap that we have for the treatment, so that we're able to make sure that our health facilities continue to function well, but at the same time optimizing various options that we have, which is to make sure that people who are on treatment are able to have a long-term supply of medication. That is why we have launched what we call the MMD, which is the multi-month dispensing, to make sure that you don't have to go and queue in the hospital, in the facilities, when you simply want to pick up your medication. But at the same time, fostering what Dr. Nkwashu also mentioned in terms of the integrated approach, which is one of the prime focus within our response, to make sure that as we grow older living with HIV, the potential for non-communicable diseases are high. So therefore, we need to assume the more integrated approach so that we're able to make sure that we make ease in terms of the access to medication by the services that are provided within our health facilities. And the awareness is very clear. That is why we are saying when you are on treatment and you are adherent, you are able to get the viral suppression within a very short space of time. And that would equal to the first U, which we talk about, the undetectable. Therefore, then if you're undetectable, you will equal to untransmittable. So there is a zero chance for you to actually transmit the HIV to your sexual partner irrespective. So all these are in ground. So therefore, we need to optimize the implementation, and we require everyone to work together to make sure we realize it.
Our strategy around managing HIV infections, Dr. Musa, I mentioned earlier that, of course, when it comes to treatment, South Africa has done really well in bringing its management of HIV under control. But, of course, the increasing infections means that we have an increasing number of people that are on treatment. And because people are living for longer, which is great, it also means that the government then is going to have to spend more during the course of these individuals' lifetimes, supplying treatment and making sure that these individuals are able to stay healthy. What does that mean for the cost of HIV management in this country?
Well, we know that when it comes to cost, a lot of money is spent on treatment, but it's not used to be where it were before, where the treatment access was not viable because it was expensive. Now it is actually affordable, and at the same time it is effective because the optimized regimens are able to make sure that people live longer, but at the same time maintain their good the health status in particular. We know that the like Dr. Kwashu said, it's a long-term, it's a lifelong treatment. So therefore, when you are on treatment, you are not expected to stop at any given time because of the issues of the cost. We had made the investment as a country, and we continue to make sure that we prioritize the lives of our people in the country. We're not working alone. That is why PEPFAR is here. That is why we have the likes of global funds that are equally contributing effectively to make sure that we respond. But we know that the investment is not gonna stay for the rest of our life. That is why there is the political commitment. That political commitment means whichever resources that we're mobilizing within the country, we need to make provision for the access of the medication, and we will commit to make sure that for the rest of the livelihood of our people that are living with HIV, the provision is made to the access of medication. But of course, we strive to make sure that we cap the new infection, because that's where we need to make sure that not everyone that are not living with HIV can have a chance to be infected at some times. That's why prevention remains critical, to make sure that with the cohort that we have of the close to 8 million people living with HIV, a provision is made, and we don't expect much more of people to be infected. And that is where our management of these resources, but at the same time making sure our interventions are effective to make sure that we live in an HIV-free generation.
All right, thanks for that contribution. I'm going to bring in some of the reflections of our listeners who've sent through voice notes. I'll also take one or two callers. And, of course, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to these contributions once we've run through them. So I think maybe let's try and see if we can take 3 voice notes, and then I'll try and also bring in a caller too.
Hi, Cathy. This is Sabata from Durban. I'm just concerned and worried about this HIV thing, because I'm a healthcare worker. Maybe I should put that on record. Our expenditure for HIV, it doesn't seem to be going down. In fact, in some cases, it seems to be going up. You would think that since we have had this HIV and AIDS since early 80s or early 90s, by now, after all the publicity and all the advertisement that are put in the media, that people are more aware now that what they shouldn't be doing when it comes to sex. So, but I don't know, for some reason it doesn't seem to be going down. Or am I wrong? Maybe the expert can shed some light, but according to the expenditure where I work, it's going up. Thank you.
Morning, Cathy. This is Tabitha Bloemfontein. The high rate infection of young girls with HIV. I'll make an example of what is happening here in Bloemfontein. You have high institutions of high learning. You have government officials working for Free State government, and their head offices are here in Bloemfontein. Go to the rest. Go to the town during the evening. You will find a Mercedes-Benz, these luxury cars, parked at the rest, near the rest, with these young girls inside. And you ask yourself whether these young girls are able to negotiate for protection. And these young girls, they are going to infect their real boyfriend, because sometimes we find that they have a young boyfriend and there's this government official, sugar daddy. That's where the infection will spread. The sooner we talk to these older men to stay away from the kids, the better.
Morning, Sisi Katie. You know, Sisi Katie, the health workers there by the clinics there, those are the ones who are hindering, who are scaring people to go and check their status there for HIV. The way they are treated, those who are already on medication, they are treated like they are on a death row. You know, there is no confidentiality, there is no sensitivity, and so forth. You find they are harassed. Those who have come for medication of HIV and whatever. So, you know, it scares people because people want privacy. They want privacy. People must even know that diabetes and hypertension are more deadly than HIV today. But those health workers there by the clinics, it's so painful. People won't go there and seek help because they'll be stigmatized. The health workers themselves are creating a room for stigmatization. That is my taking. Nomi from Brixton.
All right, so you've got varied responses there on different issues that our listeners have asked. We'll give our guests an opportunity to respond in a moment. Sbu, you're calling us from the Free State. Good morning.
Hi, Sis Kate, how are you?
Good.
Yes. Let me just say that I would like to say those affected and infected with HIV, I really say that they should big ups for them, especially the ones that are on treatment. Sis Katie, let me just say that we've got a place in KZN, Mngungundlovu. I'm sure Musa knows it. That place had an incident in terms of HIV, which was always the highest. But recently it came down. And I think that as the Department of Health is where we are failing. Those things where they are working, we don't seem to want to implement it into other areas where we can actually implement those strategies that they were put up on there. Musa is right. We've got supporters, but not support into each and every district or into each and every province. Supporters will actually go into a certain district, but as the Department of Health, they need to see that how are they assisting onto other things. The 15 to 24 years, Katie, yes, it goes with teenage pregnancy. And when you come to check on the relationship between Department of Health, Social Development, Department of Justice, and it's still lacking. It's only there at national level, but come here down at local level. There is no relationship between those departments, and that's where things are happening. That's where child abuse is happening, sexual abuse is happening, and all those things are happening. You see, when you have it there at strategic and not an implementation level, it will never be effective, says Katie. Hence, we'll have this high rate of 15 to 24 years being infected, because once you bring it at community level, is where we'll be able to deal with it.
Okay.
Because the same person there is still living within that community. Just Department of Justice is there. They can take care of those things. So I think that we have a long way before we can really deal with this HIV. We've got 8 million, and I can tell you we've got more than that, because the ones that we keep bringing in, others are falling away.
Okay.
We bring in, others are falling away. It's like you are having a basket. The others that are now defaulting now, in 6 or 7 months, they will come back with the new ones that we've actually put in. So we need to check really, Katie, and bring this at community level. When we say that the people should go and fetch their medication at facility level, some of them are working. Facilities on Saturday are closed, but you've got a community healthcare worker. They're staying within that community, which means that you'll make access easier for the ones that are working. Knowing
right,
that how you will deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution. Kensani, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you very much from all the listeners. Indeed, all of them, they've mentioned things that are critical. When it comes to, indeed to the total number of people that we have that have HIV, it is definitely correct that it's not the 8 million, but we actually have more than that 8 million. Hence, we are saying, as Dr. Manganye have highlighted, that as South Africa, we have been able to reach our first 95, but the second 95 of ensuring that everybody that have tested is on treatment, we are still struggling. And for us to be able to put get access and be able to reach that target. We still need to go out and get another 1.1 million, where we will be able to get that percentage up and be able to meet our target. So we still have a huge number of people who are out there in the community continuing to have sex, and they are HIV positive, and they don't know their HIV status. Hence, there has been a call that all men be responsible, go and get tested. And getting tested and being HIV positive, it doesn't mean that your sexual life stops there, but you will be engaged in sex in a more accountable way, with your partner, knowing how to protect yourself and at the same time protect your partner. So all the people who are out there, if you know you are a man, you have not yet tested, I will say that is our number one priority. And we know, as the other speaker has highlighted, that yes, there are a lot of issues that have been highlighted about our healthcare workers. And I'm not only taking their sides or not, but we are saying, yes, we know of all those issues, but those should not deter you, or that should not discourage you from knowing your HIV status, because that is your right as a South African. And if you've got bad experiences, or if you are not happy with the services in all the facilities, there are areas that have been highlighted to say that, no, where do you take your concerns to? But as I'm saying to all the listeners, the negativity of some of our healthcare workers should not stop you from getting access to healthcare, because it is there, it is our right, and it's provided for us at the local facility for free. You don't pay anything. Yes, thank you.
Dr. Musa, let me give you a chance to answer some of the questions that were specifically for you.
Okay, thanks, Katie. And I would like to emphasize on the issue of equal rights, equal care, because that is the basis upon which we had fostered yesterday when we commemorate the World AIDS Day. And that I want to tie it with what one of the listeners had indicated, especially in terms of the attitude of our healthcare providers, which may impede the access and the use of our facilities. It is true that there are some of the instances which we have had reports around the attitude, but we constantly ensure that we train our healthcare providers. We make sure that they are aware of, the issues that would actually make sure that we don't turn back, or we don't actually impede the realizations of, the client's rights to access their services that they require. There's a question around the high expenditure on the HIV treatment in particular, which is true because obviously one of the critical attributions that actually fuels this high expenditure is as a result of the clients that are failing on their treatment, and then they of course will then be subjected to change the regimen. So the higher the regimen, the expensive it becomes in terms of the medication that you then have to receive. So that is why we always encourage adherence, because if one is adherent and then making sure that they are coming to the facility for their viral load monitoring, that helps in terms of making sure that you stay in the very sensible regimen, which is actually affordable, and that would actually make the health system not pay much when it comes to issues of the expenditure. So it is critical that we make sure that we adhere to our medication. Right. The issue of the Ungumudofu that Busiso also made mention, which is very true. We foster the issue of benchmarking around the areas where we see good practices. That is why one of the good practices we have seen in Ungumudofu is the issue of the collaboration, the multisexual realization, which is actually bringing everyone to make sure that our response is not only limited to just health, but it also touch on the social aspect, the issues of education, which will propel children to stay in school so that they are able to make sure that they made a better life for themselves, and it avoids instances of the intergenerational sex that do happen, and that is why, as a result of the poverty and the likes, we are seeing this being fueled. But we are happy because we are working together to make sure we respond effectively.
Dr. Musa Masanganye, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there alongside Dr. Nkensani Ngwashu. It's time for the 11 o'clock news.
Thank you, Cathy. In the top stories, Hawks commended for preventing a planned ATM bombing and an advisory issued for those intending to travel to Mozambique. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Hawks boss Godfrey Lebeya has commended his officers for preventing a planned ATM bombing in Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. 5 suspects were killed in a shootout with the officers in the early hours of this morning. Another suspect was wounded and arrested. Hawks spokesperson Cathy Mohlahlana says the officers acted on a tip-off about suspects planning to bomb an ATM.
The Tactical Operational Management Section, as well as the South African Police Services Special Task Force, this morning fatally wounded 5 suspects and 1 was taken to hospital under medical attention. This is following information received that there would be robbers or ATM bombers in this area of Emalahleni with suspicion that they are going to commit an ATM bombing. And upon realization that they are faced with police officers, when they tried to flag down their vehicle, the suspects started firing at them. They returned fire, and in the vehicle explosives were found, as well as 2 rifles and 3 handguns.
Some Emalahleni residents say they are shocked because such incidents are not common in their area. Van Castle witnessed the incident.
It was just a few minutes past 2 when the first gunshots went down. I was just about to sleep, but then what happened, I decided, no, I'm not going to go check. At around about 15 minutes past 2, the second shot went off. I went out of the house to go and check. As soon as I went out, I heard the police or some people screaming, "Go back, go back, go back," and I went back into the house.
8 judges, secretaries in the High Court in Johannesburg have made an urgent application for an interim interdict to prevent the Office of the Chief Justice from interviewing, shortlisting or filling judges' secretaries post advertised in October. This is pending the main review bid in which the applicants are seeking to invalidate the judge president's decision that judges' secretaries can only be employed on fixed contracts. The action comes after majority of the 8 judges' secretaries received notice that their fixed-term contracts would be terminated at the end of this month. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The applicants allege in papers that they have enjoyed continuous renewals or extensions of their fixed-term contracts for years since their first appointment. They further argue that this form of employment is inimical of their rights and unfair, and as a result are seeking permanent employment. The Office of the Chief Justice, however, seek a dismissal of the case, arguing, among other things, that it is 1, not urgent, and 2, there is no decision that exists from the Judge President that can be reviewed or set aside. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department says eThekwini Metro Police officers have managed to clear traffic on the N2 and N3 in Durban. This after striking taxi operators caused traffic congestion. Members of the Durban Long Distance Taxi Association went on strike last Friday, leaving commuters stranded. The strike stems from the association's ongoing tensions with the government over operating permits and the release of impounded taxis. The Southern Africa Tourism Services Association has issued an advisory to holiday makers intending to travel to Mozambique to maintain close contact with their tourism service providers. This after anti-government protests flared up again in Mozambique. The association's chairperson, Oba Bilane, says the advisory is in anticipation of increased travel due to the festive season. He says those planning to travel should ensure that they get accurate and up-to-date information.
The main entrance border gate that is a challenge is the Komati Port Lebombo border, and you've got other border gates in and around Swaziland and the ones from Richards Bay and KZN. And those border gates are fairly quiet and there's nothing happening there. And these protests also, when you go in other areas of Mozambique, are not happening in areas like Vilankulu, Ponta Doro. They remain unaffected. And we are saying, therefore, that these areas can be visited. And it is equally important that the tourists should really keep in touch with their service providers on their ground so that they can know exactly where to go.
Recapping the top story, Hawks boss Godfrey Lebeya has commended his officers for preventing a planned ATM bombing in Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 11:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Morning, Cathy and the listeners. This is Megan from Bloom. Morning to a panel of doctors. Cathy, we are experiencing this problem of teenage pregnancy and high rate of HIV to those ages of youth. Due to the fact that our democratic government failed to apply and implement its public policies accordingly. Instead, they are running the government with a leaking bucket. They run for cover because they allowed the gaps. They introduced things which are distracting South Africa. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
Good morning, Sis Casey. This is Mato speaking. I think on the issue of HIV and AIDS and the way we lost it in the country, I think discipline, respect, knows what is our potential in this life. We lose it a lot. Because now it's not about the money or the medication, it's about the behavior and the attitude of the people. Says Cathy, alcohol is destroying South African children because older men use money on those children. Those children, they look at comfort, they don't look for the future, and this is totally wrong. We need deeper discipline in our country to know how to behave, and we'll solve a lot of problems by being ourselves.
And your guest there. Just something out of interest. I hear you guys using South Africa as the epicenter of HIV in the world. I happened to spend a few years in another African country during the height of COVID. One thing that caught my attention that they mentioned is that in Africa, South Africa appears to be leading in everything. In the statistics of everything. But South Africa has resources.
they can measure, they can follow up people, and they can keep the statistics for whatever is happening in their country. Other African countries don't have that privilege of having resources like South Africa have. So the stats, I'll take them with a pinch of salt. And the cultural practices that I saw in that country paint a different picture for me. Anonymous.
Hi, this is Cathy, and good morning to your guests and listeners. I think the issue with young girls getting infected with HIV and older men also contributing to that. It's because of poverty. People are unemployed, and these young women, they watch the influencers over TikTok, so they do everything using their body to get some money in exchange for what is giving them HIV. So I think government should consider at fixing the country's unemployment. That will also combat even poverty and crime.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Yeah, and apologies for the poor audio quality in that last voice note. But I think that all of you have raised different aspects which are important when it comes to trying to turn things around in as far as the high HIV infections in this country are. I wonder if, the availability of treatment, the fact that there has been just such strong education around it has also made people a bit more relaxed when it comes to getting infected with the disease, because it is not a death sentence anymore, because people can live very long. So the measures that then they can take to try and prevent infection are simply not taken as seriously as they could. I wonder how much of a role that potentially plays in this conversation. But we're going to change gears and focus on careers, and in particular career pathways for young people that are exiting the schooling system. Last week was the final week for matrics who wrote their last exam of 2024. As you can imagine, there's a sense of relief because the exams are done, but also anxiety. What exactly will those results come back looking like? But that's not just where it ends. Many of these young people are going to have to sit down and try and figure out what their future looks like. What kind of careers are they going to pursue? And when you live in a country with very high unemployment rates like South Africa has, for many of these young people, they'll be wanting to identify career paths that almost offer guaranteed employment, and I use that word in inverted commas, but they want to be as safe as possible. So beyond then just the universities getting a degree in a particular field that we know maybe is part of the skills list for South Africa, what are the other pathways that do perhaps create room into sectors where there are jobs? There are people who say that, as somebody who's a plumber never has to go a day in their life without a job. The point that they're making is that there will always be broken pipes, there will always be somebody needing services, whereas if you've gone and taken a marketing degree, you perhaps may not necessarily be so fortunate in as far as finding a job. Let me welcome onto the show Sabelo Buthelezi, who's the Chief Director, Special Projects at the Department of Higher Education and Training. Sabelo, good morning.
Good morning, Katie, and good morning to SAFM listeners.
Tebogo Litsi is the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education in Parliament. Tebogo, good morning.
Good morning, Katie, to yourself, Sabelo, and your listeners at home.
And Tsebo Moroka is a young graduate in the finance sector. Tsebo, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me begin with you, Tsebo, and because it's still quite fresh for you as somebody who graduated recently, let's talk about coming out of school, having to choose a particular career, focus on a particular stream that you thought would lead you into your career. When you look back now and at the experience, what would you say to young people who are coming out of matric this year? Perhaps things that you look back at and think, oh, I wish I knew this, or I wish I had done this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back in high school, I actually wanted to become a property developer, and that was just always been my dream. However, my family become not so much of a privileged family, hence I had to look for a career that is perceived as mostly like more wanted and sought out after or like in demand. So my parents actually forced me to actually take accounting. So I decided, okay, I'll use the accounting route to further my studies and hopefully one day become a property developer. But then when I went into varsity and I got the opportunity to do accounting, I really, and actually just now, since I'm like in like the corporate sector, I've realized that it's really hard to, especially as a black young girl, to be part of industries that are mostly like dominated by the whites, and also mostly that we can't get any opportunities from. So doing accounting, it really had a lot of more opportunities than what I actually wanted to do, which was like property development. All my friends that were also in varsity that I did accounting with, they also did get jobs. They didn't necessarily get like accounting jobs, but they were able to be pushed into some kind of department within a different company just for the fact that they just did the BCom accounting. So I just definitely say for young students, they need to really look out for careers that they know that they are most in demand, careers that they know that there's a lot of opportunities, even though it might not be the exact direction that they're looking for. But as long as they're like in companies, then they can maneuver and like connect and network and find people that will help them into achieving their initial goals that they always wanted. But they must just look at the broader perspective than just only what they really want to do.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you have faced on this journey of your career so far?
So far, I must say it has been firstly finding a job. There has been programs that have really actually helped out a lot, but I always tell my friends that for me, LinkedIn has been part of my biggest advantage in me pursuing what I'm doing right now and actually getting a job. People should not only just look at only just one, for example, the Graduate 24 website where there's only just a certain portion of job opportunities on that platform. I feel they must just look at different kinds of places where they can find jobs. So job hunting has been very tiresome for a lot of people because it's like job hunting is actually a job on its own where you have to send like 3 minimum CVs each and every day. You never get a response from anyone. So I'd definitely say that LinkedIn for me has been one of the crucial milestone in my career in finding a job, and and also other platforms. So I just say people must not only just stick to one platform, but they must just also look at other ways in finding a job. So definitely job hunting was like my biggest worry and my biggest milestone that I had to reach.
Did you at any point while you were trying to find a job think about maybe I need to pivot, maybe I need to try and go into something else? So when you were looking for job opportunities, were you applying only in accounting? And I'm asking that based on the experiences of what you say some of your friends have gone through, where yes, they may have a BCom accounting degree, but they've ended up in, very different sectors.
Yes. No, definitely. I didn't only just look at accounting, because you'll never be too sure if you'll ever go into accounting. You'll just never know where you might end up. So I definitely did look at other opportunities, entry levels, and also in the department, there was a lot of government jobs for like entry level students, where I'd want that I put my CV in, not only just my qualification. I didn't only just look at the qualification that I had, but I looked at other streams that I can maybe go into. Hence why I said that I feel like as students, you must not only just say, okay, I have a BCom accounting degree, then I just need to only go into accounting. I feel like you need to just get your foot into the door somehow, maybe a receptionist, or maybe in the call center department of maybe a big company, and then as you just develop yourself, develop your skills, take some short courses, you might end up doing exactly what you wanted to do. So I didn't only just look at accounting, but I looked at other ways and how to get my foot into the door into these big corporations.
Sabelo, listening to the experience of Tsebo, on the one hand, of course, one has to commend, right, how motivated she has been to take initiative and to keep going back to sending those CVs, advertising herself and finding opportunities on social media platforms like LinkedIn. But on the other, of course, it's about looking at just how much anxiety, how much stress, how much pressure young people who are not only leaving school but also who are living in institutions of higher learning, just how much they're having to deal with in this very unpredictable environment. And that must be one of the concerns for the Department of Higher Education and Training. There's a lot of hopefulness. People work very hard to get their accounting degrees, to stay with the example that we're using for today. But to then have to think about, well, I might not actually use my degree. Let me go be a call center agent. Let me just get whatever I can find, regardless of the skills that I have learned over the last 4 to 5 years. That in and of itself, I think it's quite devastating for the young people affected.
Thank you very much, Cathy. I hope I can come in.
Yes, sure, go for it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity that you have provided for us. One thing that I can mention, especially at the candidate, sorry, I couldn't hear the name. Maybe we have an economic situation that has not created enough number of jobs that are needed. But that being said, allow me to provide, probably for those ones that are still at school or sitting at home, an alternative pathway in terms of consideration going to 2025 academic year. I will just talk a bit about vocational education that is provided by TVET colleges. Yes, it might not be assisting those that are coming already that have graduated, but if we could just take a bit of focusing on those that are still in the pipeline of looking for career pathways. So what the vocational education focusing on artisan in particular, it provides a pathway for individuals to develop specialized skills in various trades and crafts, preparing them for rewarding careers. These careers can be in variety of sectors ranging from construction, manufacturing, food production, transport, energy, and water. Just to mention few. You made an example that using a plumber, that you might not be in a full-time employment, but we are going to festive season. There will be water leakage, there will be a number of things. As a person who got the technical skill, you stand a better opportunity of saying, before you even get to the permanent or full-time employment, being employed by someone, you can create some work for you. So I want to put vocational education as an alternative pathways for people that are still in the pipeline, considering what am I going to do in 2025? Which career should I choose that might allow me to quickly and easily provide for myself and my family?
Of course, we can't look at vocational training at the end of the schooling career of young people and say, well, this is an alternative. It has to be one of those that is also equally introduced earlier on. Somebody like Zabu, yes, she may have ended up going into accounting because her parents suggested that it would be the best path for her. But that comes out of this established track record of accountants who get jobs, who make a decent living. And so what is the work that is being done to actually showcase the livelihood of those that are building and have built careers out of vocational training, and to help to give it a good name?
Thank you. There is a strong societal bias in South Africa towards university education, with vocational education being viewed as a second-tier option. Many young people and their families see academic degrees as the only path to success and social mobility. That's one of the societal perceptions that we need to change, and we appreciate the opportunity that we are giving. We hope there's more of this, so that firstly, we need to deal with the perception of vocational education and change. In terms of
Dr. Sabelo, sorry, apologies for that, Sabelo. Before you continue, it's not just a perception. The statistics around employment in this country say that those young people that have degrees are more likely to gain employment than those without. And that's what the numbers tell us. So it's beyond just being a perception.
If I can deal to that, we might be comparing the university degrees to a person that does not have any formal qualification. But within the vocational education, you do get in artisanal careers, a person do go through a 3 or a 4-year training and obtain a qualification, a national qualification that says you are an artisan. And once you have that, the tracer study that the department has done says 80% of those people who successfully complete get employment within the first 6 months post qualification, and others end up getting entrepreneurs. It is the artisans that are building the economy, that are providing necessary skills. So we cannot underplay the role that is played by TVET colleges in ensuring that the correct skills. Yes, it's true that if you compare a degree with a person who does not have any form of qualification, that the person with a degree will stand a better chance. But we also need to look on those that have received the correct qualification and trade in TVET colleges and the role that they are playing in the economy. We often don't talk enough about what they are doing in the economy, who is building the economy.
All right, we're going to continue with this conversation in a moment. It's 11:30, time for the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, the ANC National Working Committee meeting called to discuss the challenges facing the KZN provincial leadership is set to begin shortly. Hawks boss Godfrey Lebeya has commended his officers for preventing a planned ATM bombing in Emalahleni in Mpumalanga, and former Namibian First Lady Monica Geingob has lambasted the Electoral Commission of Namibia for failing to administer the recent elections competently. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're looking at young people who are exiting the schooling system, so who would be done with matric this year, and what does the future hold for them, and what are the pathways, the potential pathways for them that they can look at pursuing that perhaps increases their chances of being able to create a livelihood and earn a living for themselves. Sabelo Buthelezi is the Chief Director for Special Projects at the Department of Higher Education and Training. Debo Lidzie is the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education in Parliament, and Tsebo Moroka is a young graduate in the finance sector. So, Debo, then let me give you a chance to come in on this particular issue and perhaps weigh in on the direction that you think we as a country should be going in helping to carve out and helping to shape these career opportunities for young people.
No, thank you very much, Cathy. Let me begin by saying to Tibo and many other graduates who are currently struggling in employment that we do sympathize with their situation. And then, but this thing that you have graduated and they struggle to find employment is exactly what, we keep on saying that universities every, year or two, working with industry, should, release qualifications in high demand every year or to update it every year to so that students or potential students know what they must study towards. But coming back to, I think when you started the conversation, you made an example about plumbers having, almost a guarantee that they're going to always have employment because there will always be a best type. I think that is true. And so for electricians, bricklayers, tailors, carpenters, engineers, riggers, and all of that. So this thing of vocational education, artisanal and vocational education, is important because countries, thriving economies in countries like Germany, Switzerland, Singapore, China, and all of that, the economies are thriving because they made serious investment in their skills development through artisan development and vocational training. And that is why I think if you look at our TVET colleges, we are modeling the German and the Chinese, to try and make sure that our people understand that a university is not above TVET college in essence. It depends on what is it that obviously a person wants to do. But if one wants a guaranteed job, like Dr. Sabelo said earlier on, artisans are the way to go in South Africa.
So even though we talk about the fact that TVET colleges, should not be seen as less than universities, certainly a lot of how these institutions are resourced, therefore their ability, to service students, that has also contributed to the negative perceptions that exist around, TVET colleges and the quality of qualification that one can get from these institutions.
No, that's a fair comment, and we as the portfolio committee, we have informed the department that the skewed or the bias resourcing of our institutions must come to an end. And we've informed the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Nkabani, that the new budget that she will present before the committee at the beginning of the year should indeed show that there's serious focus on TVET colleges, because it can't be that we want them to produce these best artisans, but we're not resourcing them as we should.
Sabelo, again, coming back to how we get young people and their parents looking at artisanal vocational training. What is the work that you would say the department has been actively engaged in doing to encourage this?
Thank you, Cathy, again. Department, I will just mention 3 of the highlights, but there are quite few programs and intervention that the department has put into place, especially focusing on artisanal area. One program that the department has is currently implementing is the Centers of Specialization, which focuses on upgrading infrastructure to train artisans. And those centers that we have upgraded, they are now training fully fledged artisans and working with employers in those centers, but the intention is to expand on those. Second day is reviewing the curriculum and introducing 4IR programs at colleges so that we are able to attract employers and make these institutions the institutions of first choice. And maybe the third example that I want to make is exposing our learners to world skills competition, including exchange programs and scholarship. We are working with some of the countries like your China, your India, and so on, in terms of student exchange at the TVET level. Currently, we have a number of students that are pursuing technical careers in China through TVET colleges that we are currently doing. So those are just amongst the few interventions that the department is doing in promoting, firstly, the TVET college and trying to change the image and perception of TVET college, both to societies and also to employers that have been knowing TVET college as having poor infrastructure. Yes, that is true, as acknowledged by the chairperson. But we are working. There is work that is currently happening in a number of centers that we are changing that feel and look of TVET college.
Yeah, and I still think, Sabelo, that one of the best ways to draw people into vocational careers is to show those individuals that have been able to make a success out of their lives, most of the time who are running their own businesses. When one looks at, if we stay with the example we started with earlier, at the accounting field, the reason why people look at it and think it's attractive is because they see how successful accountants can be by and large in society.
Thank you very much. I think we, from the technical perspective, and maybe from the government, it's just now my view, we are not doing enough to profile success stories of artisans. Yes, they might not be seen in societies like doctors or accountants, but there are artisans that are running serious business that are quite successful, and they employ accountants, by the way, to do their books. They are businesses that are working, that are started, but we need, yes, I agree, we need to profile those businesses that are started by artisans and are run by artisans, and they might be employing few accountants or an accountant to run their books. So there is a work that need to be done so that we profile that, especially amongst the society, that it's not just, if you're an artisan, it's not just about the dirty overall boots and hard hat, but there is a serious business that happens beyond that.
Okay. Lala, let me bring you into the conversation. You're calling from Polokwane. Good morning.
Good morning, Sasikazi. I hear the conversation is very interesting. I, however, believe that your guests are looking some sort of practical evidence from what is happening on the ground. To start with, the universities today are getting a challenge that the students that they receive from the high schools, from the secondary levels, they've been channeled to do only certain kind of qualifications which are not contributing to what the country needs. Go into the schools, you'll find that out of 100% of the students who are doing matric, almost 85% of them are doing the so-called math lead. That means they cannot go to the engineering field, they cannot go to the accounting field, they cannot go to medicine. And you find the teachers and the principals, in the principals in the schools. I had this early this year when I went to another school, when we attended the matric class. They said, you know what, you don't need to force your children to do 2 maths, because today we are having the doctors in South Africa who are not having jobs. And it's true. But the system at the moment is forcing our children to pursue these things which are not relevant. However, if we can try and do whatever that we want to do to make sure that the children, they go to the TVET, go into the industries. The man I heard him talking about the food industries. I worked for the food industry for the past 20 years. You go, you look, who are the artisans? Even today, they're still employing the artisans who are coming from the other countries, whereas we are having artisans in South Africa, or the children who are qualified to go and work as artisans in this country are not employed. So they need to change the system. The last thing that I want to tell you, I spoke to you one other day and I said to you, look on Google and say, just Google and say, Malawian Minister of Labor said, about employing foreign workers. We have the foreign workers in this country that are taking the jobs that are supposed to be given to the South Africans, but nothing has been done to correct that situation. Even if we can do anything, we will never get this thing right. Thank you very much, Asked.
All right, Lala, thanks for that view. I'm bringing in more of your contributions to this conversation on the WhatsApp line.
Hi, Cathy. Hi, SAFM. Wong from Newcastle here. With TVET colleges, a lot more effort needs to be put into our TVET colleges to make it appealing to the young people. Besides going too far, just go and enter those TVET colleges and see if there's something inspiring for a young person to want to be studying there. And compared to your normal typical universities. And number two, the one mistake the government is making with TVET colleges, they are saying degrees are not that important, but look at the jobs that come out. Most of them are looking for degrees and so on. When it comes to artisans and so on coming from TVET colleges, they tend to want 10 to 15 years experience. So there needs to be an open conversation between our higher education department with the TVET colleges and industry, so that we don't waste people's futures and monies.
Sabelo, respond to that for me, please.
Thank you, Cathy. Maybe starting with the first caller, Lala, I think it's true that we always having this debate around the STEM subject and the relevance of what learners choose, even as early as their school years. So it's that point is taken, and I acknowledge it's an ongoing discussion. But also what one need to bring, I think, in addition of what the chairperson was saying around occupations in high demand, is one area that guides that need to guide us and learners in choosing the careers, because that those occupations in high demand specify what are the skills that employers are looking for. But the other one may be linking to the employment of foreign nationals. It's the scarce skills that the Department of Home Affairs always draft. Also, when we consider the expansion of our centers of specialization, we look on what are the occupations that are on the scarce skills list, so that we try and address that and ensure that people are are trained in the occupations where they stand to get employment. And then the issue of experience, I think, is not unique to TVET college graduates, but it cuts across the entire post-school education in the country. Even the university graduates suffer the same fate where a person has just graduated, but the employers are looking for someone who has 5-10 years experience, and then hence a number of graduates end up sitting without employment. So it's still a challenge that we have. Thank you.
Deborah, it sounds to me, just briefly to wrap up our conversation, that this is a big opportunity cost. The fact that we don't have these very clear alternative pathways for young people.
Yeah, maybe before that, Cathy, just to say that we must acknowledge that a lot still needs to be done to, to profile the TVET colleges. We must also accept, Dr. Sabelo, that our TVET college infrastructure, not all of it looks good, and the department must indeed do much, to improve that part. So we can't be returning money to National Treasury of infrastructure that we're free to spend. And when you go into these campuses, the infrastructure does not look good. I think it was a caller from Newcastle who did mention that. Indeed, a lot again still needs to be done, to profile our institutions, our TVET colleges, profile them to high school learners. We need to profile, I think the department need to take this away, that they need to profile the success stories.
Okay.
There are a lot of success stories everywhere, in over all parts of our country. So they need to profile them and, make them known to everybody else.
All right. Dab was the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education in Parliament, and Sabelo Buthelezi, the Chief Director for Special Projects at the Department of Higher Education and Training. That brings us to the end of the show for today on The Talking Point. We're back with you again between 9 and midday tomorrow.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Constipation got you down? Progast Colon Cleanse is here to help. With unique blends and detoxifying agents, experience relief from occasional constipation, IBS-C, and digestive block-ups. Trusted by nurses, pharmacists, and recommended by doctors. Ask for Progast Colon Cleanse today. If it doesn't say Progast, it's not the genuine product. Available at leading pharmacies nationwide. Progast, the professional's choice.
The English are targeting a magnificent day on the pitch, but the Proteas want to send a strong reminder that the Diamond Oval is their home ground. What is summer without cricket? This is the One Day International Series, where summer cricket comes alive. Catch the exhilarating women's first ODI contest, South Africa versus England, this Wednesday 4 December at 13:40. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and Radio 2000 with reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of the book I Wish Someone Had Told Me by Wendy Silebi, read by Fiona Ramsey.
The journey to financial freedom requires one to have a clear purpose. My financial journey commenced without a clear financial purpose, born from not having a clear vision. A compelling financial purpose inspires you and becomes the source of all your financial endeavors. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines purpose as something set up as an object or an end to be attained. The Oxford Dictionary defines purpose as the reason something is done, a person's sense of resolve or determination. Dr. Miles Monroe defines purpose as follows. Purpose is when you know and understand what you were born to accomplish. To find your financial purpose, you must be intentional, deliberate, and determined. Intention drives the quest to attain financial purpose, while determination leads to the formulation of clearly defined goals, accompanied by a deliberate resolve to implement and achieve the purpose. Without this deliberate resolve, the financial goals become an unfulfilled dream. Simon Sinek, in his book Find Your Why, places the why at the center of his golden circle, which determines financial purpose. The center for me is the heart, the place where vision and purpose are lodged. The why, which is purpose, appeals to our emotions. In Chapter 2, I alluded to the fact that we are emotional beings. Our emotions propel us in creating wealth, growing and managing it. Growing wealth requires a passionate purpose. A positive mindset, clear goals, and solid plans become a compass that leads our financial journey. The compass is an instrument used to indicate accurate direction and helps navigate the challenging terrain for sailors, especially when navigating the sea. The navigating needle points the direction as the boat moves, guides and redirects the boat when it's off course. The compass will direct your financial journey to your true north, eliminating distractions and errors. You will be able to calculate, recalculate, and measure the angle between the financial objectives and the desired direction required to achieve the goals. There are many distractions along the financial journey, so the compass needle helps you stay on course. Financial purpose will keep you on track towards achieving your financial goals. You will be steered north every time you veer off the radar, your goal. Without a clear financial purpose, your financial journey will be fraught with crippling mistakes. A clear why, or purpose, leads to the what, where, when, and how the road to financial success will pan out. The what directs you about whether to spend your hard-earned money on needs or on wants. Every purchase is a financial decision that leads to either achieving your goals or moving away from them. The where helps with the decision on the places and spaces you spend your money. Does spending your money at a watering hole where alcohol is served take you closer or further away from your goals, is the question to answer. The how addresses the frequency of spending. I believe it's the simple things we do every day that determine the how. For example, if you know that you need to purchase bread, milk, and other necessities weekly, you can reduce petrol, bank withdrawal charges, and time by ordering the food online. There are now online services that deliver to your door. Allow me to digress a little and paint a different picture of the importance of the why in general. Imagine what our lives and financial lives would look like if our parents sat us down and provided the reasons why we were born and the purpose they envisage for our lives. Imagine the positive trajectory our lives would follow. This discussion alone would change so many lives. I understand that as individuals we live out our own journey and cannot live out the failures of our parents. But even this provides us with a guiding marker as to the direction we should or should not take. Engaging us and articulating the purpose will help shape many lives. From the time of conception until birth, the baby's needs are taken care of by the mother. There is a constant supply of food, water, nutrition, and nourishment. The same process continues post-birth until the child reaches the stage of attending creche, primary, secondary, and high school. In most cases, there is little interaction between the parents and the child on the big why. All the parents do is encourage the child to acquire a good education and become successful by acquiring either a degree or diploma. On graduation day, they breathe a sigh of relief that at least they have completed what their parents wanted them to achieve. To their utter amazement, they are now told that they need to get married, purchase a home, and have children. This cycle continues throughout generations. No discussion of the why is factored in. This example of the life cycle is exactly the same journey we navigate with our finances. As soon as we complete our education, find employment, or start a business, the why question regarding our financial purpose is not answered. Understanding your financial why is the key to achieving all your goals. The financial purpose will help you clearly articulate your envisaged financial destiny. Starting with your why is the key to financial liberation and a life that is purpose-driven. I encourage you to draft a why statement that is aligned to your goals. Your statement must be clear, simple, motivating, actionable, and achievable. The statement must continuously inspire you to persevere and connect your goals to the purpose. Simon Sinek offers a simple way of crafting a why statement. The statement must start with to, so that. Here is an example below. To start saving and investing early so that I can retire comfortably. I had big goals, but they were not supported by a why. Hence it became difficult to follow through on some of the goals I had set. Some of my goals were unrealistic and did not materialize. Families should huddle around a table and discuss their why together. Individual members should have their own personal why statement crafted so that both individual and family goals are aligned, supported, and achieved. The knowing of each other's why helps with being supportive of each other in achieving the set goals. What is your financial why? What is your purpose? Seeds of wisdom. Purpose is the master of motivation and commitment, said Dr. Miles Monroe. Be purpose-driven so that your financial plan is full of hope and passion to act. Let your financial purpose help you to set boundaries on how, where, and with whom you spend your hard-earned money. Live your purpose daily. Your why will drive your daily decisions. Chapter 4. Seeing with the Heart. Vision is a picture of the future that produces passion in people, said Bill Hybels. Seed 5. Vision is the propeller of financial freedom and success.
That was another episode of I Wish Someone Had Told Me, written by Wendy Silibi, read by Fiona Ramsey. The book is available online on www.wendysilibi.co.za. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Fiona Ramsey, technical production team, Wiseman Manele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Maporuma.
Just after 12 o'clock on Monday, the 2nd of December 2024. Very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
the National Executive Committee has to make final decisions on what gets to be done in supporting the people and the members of the ANC and the structures of the ANC KwaZulu-Natal.
the ANC National Working Committee meeting called to discuss challenges facing the KZN provincial leadership is set to begin shortly at Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg on Gauteng's East Rand.
The Border Management Authority is committed to ensuring that our ports of entry are not exploited for any form of violence as well as criminal activities.
And the Border Management Authority's Commissioner Dr. Mike Masiapato has outlined the festive season control measures at all ports of entry. Coming up in sport.
Fascinating weekend of football. I explain what's happening in the Premiership and in the Premier League, and how much money do you have to buy a baggy green?
Huh? Okay. He'll tell us, no doubt, later in the show. That's John Gericke, and thanks so much for standing in last week. Please share your views with us on 41391, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also send us your messages via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a voice note on 0826923909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Monday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, the latest news with Mohlahlana.
Thank you, Sakina. Top stories. ANC top brass to discuss KZN leadership challenges and an advisory issued for those intending to travel to Mozambique. For SAFM News, I am Mohlahlana, and a very good day. The ANC National Working Committee meeting called to discuss the challenges facing the KZN provincial leadership is set to begin shortly. The meeting follows a visit by the top brass of the ANC to KZN last month to meet with the PEC and regional leaders. This after the election setback in that province, which saw the ANC losing its majority with the newly formed MK party becoming its main rival. Speaking on the sidelines of the meeting, ANC National spokesperson Mahlengu Bengu Mutsiri scoffed at suggestions of the disbandment of the PEC, but insisted that their meeting will make recommendations to the National Executive Committee meeting scheduled for next week.
The officials of the ANC will be meeting shortly, after which the National Working Committee will also have its own interaction before meeting with the KZN Provincial Executive Committee. And an assessment was done by the National Working Committee, and that this meeting is meant to provide that kind of feedback. I cannot speculate on what the decision of the National Working Committee is going to be. A number of scenarios are being presented. The NWC will deliberate further and make recommendations to the National Executive Committee.
Hawks boss Godfrey Lebeya has commended his officers for preventing a planned ATM bombing in Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. 5 suspects were killed in a shootout with the officers in the early hours of this morning. Another suspect was wounded and arrested. Hawks spokesperson Cathy Mohlahlana says the officers acted on a tip-off about suspects planning to bomb an ATM.
The Tactical Operational Management Section, as well as the South African Police Services Special Task Force, this morning fatally wounded 5 suspects, and 1 was taken to hospital under medical attention. This is following information received that there would be robbers or ATM bombers in this area of Mohlahlana with suspicion that they are going to commit an ATM bombing. And upon realization that they are faced with police officers, when they tried to flag down their vehicle, the suspects started firing at them. They returned fire. And in the vehicle, explosives were found, as well as 2 rifles and 3 handguns.
Some Mohlahlana residents say they are shocked because such incidents are not common in their area. Van Castle witnessed the incident.
It was just a few minutes past 2 when the first gunshots went down. I was just about to sleep, but then what happened, I decided, no, I'm not going to go check. At around about 15 minutes past 2, the second shot went off. I went out of the house to go and check. As soon as I went out, I heard the police or some people screaming, "Go back, go back, go back," and I went back into the house.
The KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department says eThekwini Metro police officers have managed to clear traffic on the N2 and N3 in Durban. This after striking taxi operators caused traffic congestion. Members of the Durban Long Distance Taxi Association went on strike last Friday, leaving commuters stranded. The strike stems from the association's ongoing tensions with the government over operating permits and the release of impounded taxes. The Southern Africa Tourism Services Association has issued an advisory to holiday makers intending to travel to Mozambique to maintain close contact with their tourism service providers. This after anti-government protests flared up again in Mozambique. The association's chairperson, Opa Bilade, says the advisory is in anticipation of increased travel due to the festive season. He says those planning to travel should ensure that they get accurate and up-to-date information.
The main entrance border gate that is a challenge is the Komati Port Lebombo border. And you've got other border gates in and around Swaziland and the ones from Richards Bay and KZN. And those border gates are fairly quiet and there's nothing happening there. And these protests also, when you go in other areas of Mozambique, are not happening in areas like Vilankulu, Ponta Douro. They remain unaffected. And we are saying, therefore, that these areas can be visited. And it is equally important that the tourists should really keep in touch with their service providers on their ground so that they can know exactly where to go.
Former Namibian First Lady Monica Geingob has lambasted the Electoral Commission of Namibia for failing to administer the recent elections competently. She was reacting to the Commission's extension of voting by several days because authorities did not deliver voting material to some polling stations. Geingob says the Commission has some questions to answer.
I don't believe it was sabotage. I do believe it was a capacity issues, and those capacity issues have helped nobody who's contesting. It's bad for the opposition, it's bad for the ruling party, because whoever wins, you don't want a contested win that has to go to the judiciary has to make a decision, and the judiciary's decisions on elections, we always, by the way, in Namibia, we always contest electoral outcomes. It always goes to court. The last 4 election cycles have all gone to court.
Recapping the top story, the ANC National Working Committee meeting called to discuss the challenges facing the KZN provincial leadership is set to begin shortly. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks so much, Ondela. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 10 minutes after 12. Thanks for being with us here on Update at Noon. And thanks to John doing a sterling job last week, but it is good to be back. Just a quick one on what you can expect on the show today. So the ANC holding a meeting with provincial structures of KwaZulu-Natal this morning following poor showing in the 2024 national elections. And Tebo Mokobo is watching that for us. So we'll check in with him to find out what he knows at this point. And then we're also keeping a watch on some updates. The executive mayor of the city of Tshwane is giving a key update on the city's recovery progress, including 6 billion rand Eskom debt. And this as the new multi-party government approaches the midpoint of its 100-day plan of action to accelerate service delivery and stabilize operations in the city. And then the strike by Durban Long Distance Distance Taxi Association has entered its fourth day, as you heard in the news. And this morning I was watching as one of our reporters was speaking to some of the commuters there left stranded. So we'll check in with our reporters there in eThekwini as well. But as you heard, some of the roads that were blocked have now been cleared. So it seems as though things are well, but our reporters will be able to bring us up to speed. The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, has given a briefing and this to outline the festive season control measures at ports of entry around the country. We're also keeping an eye on what's happening in Soweto. Orlando residents have given foreign spaza shop owners until the 1st of December to close all spaza shops in and around Orlando East. Now, today obviously is the 2nd of December, and we are just watching that situation to see if anything is happening there. So we do have our reporter Simpiwe watching that for us. And the Electoral Commission in Namibia is expected to announce final results, and the opposition says they will definitely go to court on this one. And then today is also the Commission of Land Restitution's 30th anniversary. So they are commemorating the Restitution and Land Rights Act, and this is happening in Pretoria. And we're also keeping an eye on some court stories. The High Court in Pretoria heard that the investigators are yet to determine the motive for the assassination of soccer star Senzo Mayiwa. The lead investigator, Brigadier Bongani Gininda, suggested that Kelly Kumalo was the mastermind, however, says they could not find a specific motive, but that the investigations are ongoing. And also 2 suspects, including a RISE SA President Mpho Dagada, are appearing at the Commercial Crimes Court in Polokwane for their alleged involvement in cryptocurrency Bitcoin scam. So those are some of the stories that we're watching for you this afternoon.
My name is Boitumelo Tekiso. I'm 15. I was in a class of 30 kids and wasn't getting the attention I needed. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. With continuous support, including a support coach, I can get ahead and stay ahead. Sign up at uctonlinehighschool.com. It's not too late. Applications close 6 January 2025.
Africa Zonga's visitors, England, believe only victory will bring joy to the English. However, the Proteas are highly spirited to triumph. What a summer without cricket! This is the One Day International Series, where summer cricket comes alive. Catch the glittering women's second ODI clash between Africa and England on Sunday, 8 December at 9:40. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Now, the African National Congress's National Working Committee meeting called to discuss the challenges facing the KwaZulu-Natal provincial leadership is set to begin shortly at Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg. The meeting follows a visit by the top brass of the ANC to KZN last month to meet with the PEC and regional leaders. And this after the election setback in the province, which saw the ANC losing its majority to the newly formed MK party, who have become its main rival. ANC spokesperson Mahlengi Bengu Mutsiri scoffed at suggestions of a disbandment of the PEC.
The officials of the ANC will be meeting shortly, after which the National Working Committee will also have its own interaction before meeting with the KZN Provincial Executive Committee. But I can say that indeed this meeting is sitting, and it is sitting against this background that there was a National Working Committee visit to KZN, where we also went to the different regions in KZN. A report was compiled and an assessment was done by the National Working Committee and shared with the PEC of that province. And the undertaking was that both the PEC and the National Working Committee will deliberate further on these issues, reflect and have actually all of the reports that were presented to get to percolate a bit in the minds of leaders. And that this meeting is meant to provide that kind of feedback, which is a two-way feedback if you think about it. All of that, where is it going? It is all set for the National Executive Executive Committee, the end of year National Executive Committee that will be taking place in a week from now. So this meeting is really, you could call it a prep meeting, because the National Executive Committee has to make final decisions on what gets to be done in supporting the people and the members of the ANC and the structures of the ANC KwaZulu-Natal, judging from the challenges we experienced with the electoral outcome, judging from the challenges we experienced with a lot of defections to the MK party, and the need to regroup and to review our structures, fortify them, prepare them for battles ahead.
And that was ANC spokesperson Mahlengi Bengu Mutsiri. And we join on the line now by our reporter monitoring this meeting for us, Ntebo Mokowa. Ntebo, good afternoon. So has the meeting started? Well, our apologies there. Ntebo is somewhere in the system, so hopefully we'll be able to connect anytime now. Ntebo? Technology and how it can scupper you at times. Anyway, Ntebo is, of course, at Birchwood Hotel, and he's monitoring these proceedings for us. We were told a short while ago it was about to start, and obviously looking at the build-up to this meeting, because there have been reports that the KZN faces the likelihood of disbandment, and given the nature of the particular meeting and who has been invited to it, there was always going to be a lot of speculation. So we'll find out in a short while from Ntebo Mokobo in terms of what is being said on the ground, what exactly is taking place, and of course what else is likely to unfold with the National Working Committee. And all of this, of course, taking place before the NEC meeting, which will be the final one for this year, which takes place next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So we are just trying to sort out those lines, and we unfortunately don't seem to be winning there. Thought we had Ntebo. Unfortunately, we don't. Tell you what, we're trying to get someone else on the line as well. But before we get into any of that, let's sort out our lines here and take a quick break.
Whatever your need for a personal loan, choose a bank that's best for your loans. Nedbank offers loans of up to 400,000 Rand at the best possible interest rate. And there's more. Open a My Goals Plus or My Goals Premium account, and you could enjoy 200 Rand cashback every month for the duration of your loan term. That's up to 14,400 Rand cashback. Visit nedbank.co.za to apply for your tailored personal loan. See money differently. Nedbank. We are a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The English are targeting a magnificent day on the pitch, but the Proteas want to send a strong reminder that the Diamond Oval is their home ground. What a summer without cricket! This is the One Day International Series, where summer cricket comes alive. Catch the exhilarating women's first ODI contest, South Africa versus England, this Wednesday 4 December at 13:14. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Well, welcome back. Just struggling with those connections. But in the meantime, let's bring you this. The South African Communist Party will contest the 2026 local government elections independently from its historical ally, the ANC. Now, the SACP says that all the modalities of going it alone will be thrashed out at the party's 5th Special National Conference in a fortnight. The SACP will also thrash out its bilateral meeting with the ANC in the first week of January, or it will trash out all of these issues. And Ntebo Mokobo also compiled this report for us.
Since 1994, the SACP has been contesting power elections within the context of the ANC-led alliance. However, in 2007, their party mooted the idea of the reconfiguration of the alliance and insisted that if all fails, it would be left with no choice but to contest elections independently from the ANC. After years of deliberations with little progress in the realization of a reconfigured alliance, compounded by the inclusion of the DA in the ANC-led GNU to the irritation of the SACP, Communists say the time has come to contest for power, as its Secretary General Solima Paila explains.
We had indicated to the ANC that we have taken a decision to contest local government election as a Communist Party. So officially and formally, now this has been communicated with the ANC. So one of the discussions in the January meeting will also be to attend to this matter.
Mapaila says they might use their own logo or that of an organization known within communities. He insisted that all the modalities of their decisions will be finalized at their successive meetings after the 5th Special National Conference planned for next week.
Yes, that's what it also means. But it also means that there could be a front organization differently in communities based on the SACP's mobilization of the various social forces in order to win. Because we want to contest elections to win them and drive a radical social transformation agenda that can serve the interests of the majority of our people in this country, not the interests of the minority few white racist and capitalist forces. The Central Committee and Politburo will then finalize the modality of implementation, the technicalities basically, but we are participating in the local government election as the SACP.
This is not the first time the SACP will be contesting elections after fielding its candidates in the 2017 by-elections in the Metsimaholo municipality in the Free State, where it scooped 3 seats. At the time, the party cited the failure of the ANC to engage in meaningful discussions on the reconfiguration of the alliance, among others. The SACP General Secretary bemoaned the failure of the liberation movements in the SADC region and elsewhere on the continent for their failure to fight and stand up for the sovereignty of member states.
Like in other Southern African countries and other African countries, colonialism still stays, even in this country. Do you really think that there's independence in this country, Deb? No. There's none. And that's our main point. There's no independence in this country. There's no national sovereignty in this country. We can't take independent decisions. Our decisions have to moderate the interests of Europe. Europe continues to threaten us with economic sanctions. They've utilized all these systems of aggression and intimidation of independent countries across the world.
Still reeling from its historic loss in the May 29 elections, the ANC will reflect on it with the 2 provinces that recorded the biggest loss in the elections, Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, later this morning. I am Tebo Mokobe in Johannesburg.
And let us know your thoughts on that. As soon as we are able to get through to Ntebo, we'll bring you up to speed with what the latest is from Birchwood. Now, Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya says that the city has reached an agreement with Eskom to pay the over 6 billion rand in municipal debt over a period of 5 years. And this as she was updating the nation on the city's recovery progress. She joins us on the line now to tell us more about that. Mayor, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Update at Noon.
Thank you, Sakina, and to your listeners at home, and thank you for having me.
Mayor Moya, let's start with this 6 billion rand debt to Eskom and, of course, how that particular repayment will affect the citizens of the city of Tshwane.
Yes, so firstly, the agreement, as you were saying, is for 5 years. So what we have agreed on with Eskom is that we will take the debt up to September, and that debt, which is over 6 billion rand, that's the one that is ring-fenced to be paid over the next 5 years. And in terms of the amounts, they're not necessarily a flat rate across the months over the 5 years. They also considered our projections financially as the city of Tshwane. So that is the amount. And secondly, Eskom has agreed that they will waive the interest, that that amount that's ring-fenced, it won't increase for as long as we keep to the payment schedule. And also because what was killing us the most was the issue of the interest, and the interest on the areas, which over the 18 months is over 700 million rand. So for us to be able to have, some stability in terms of how we manage our finances, that element is very helpful. So in terms of how it's going to affect the residents of Tshwane, it means that in our budget for the next 5 years, we must budget for this amount so that we can keep to our payment plan that we have agreed on. However, what the benefit is, because when we're talking to Eskom, we had 3 options on the table, whether we pay over 3 years or over 4 years or over 5 years. And in terms of our assessment, if we we are able to get the 5-year plan, we will be able to have a way in which we manage our cash flow, but also then get some room for us to plan properly for service delivery. So that's the benefit of this 5-year plan as opposed to a 3-year plan that we had initially. So basically that's what the agreement, and we are starting the payment December 2024, and with the last payment will be March 2029. And in addition to that, we need to keep to our current account where we pay the full amount of the current account within 30 days, which is something that was quite important from the side of ESCOM.
Just a point of clarity, Madam Mayor, with regard to the collection for electricity payments, where is the city currently? Because, again, this particular debt, as you say, will be budgeted for. In other words, money that would have been used for service delivery will now be used to service this debt.
Yes, so we haven't been doing as well when it comes to collecting revenue on the side of electricity. We meet our projected revenue, but it hasn't been to a point where it is profitable. And it's because of the revenue losses that we continue to suffer on the side of electricity, and it's the same when it comes to water as well. That part of the discussions with the minister when we started this discussion was that a payment plan alone is not enough. We need to have a revenue protection plan, which is quite diverse in terms of how we approach it, to say with the revenue base that we already have as the city, how do we retain it, but also how do we make sure that we collect, to the maximum for the consumption that we are having, which means we have to deal with illegal connections in the city. But in cases where, for instance, in informal settlements, where you find a lot of these illegal connections, whether there is no alternative way of connecting informal settlements, we've got about 575 in the city of Tshwane. And because they are not formalized, we don't give them services, and then they find ways to connect themselves. But also just normal formalized areas, the scourge of illegal connections is too bad. And as we have realized when we're doing the meter conventions as well. So the point is that part of having the payment plan, we must then be intensifying our revenue protection and our revenue collection as well, so that we can recover. And what we also said to ESCOM is that in 2 years, let's review if all of these plans that we have put in place that we are doing now, they pay fruits. In 2 years, we must review and see if we can expedite the payment.
And one of the other issues you also touched on, Mayor, is the issue of spaza shops and the approach that you're taking to that. Could you kindly explain that to us very briefly?
Yeah, so the three main things that we are doing in the city were, one, responding to the COCTA standard draft bylaw that was gazetted on the 7th of November. We have taken our bylaw that incorporate that bylaw to council for public consultation on Thursday last week. So we're going to go on consultations, and obviously there we're focusing on compliance on the side of businesses, on health and safety of emanating from the products that are being sold, but also we took it as an opportunity to focus on our local economic development strategy, where we are proposing in the bylaw that let's have some quotas for the Tshwane residents. So that's one. The second one is our response to the president's announcement that we must register all spaza shops within 21 days from the day that he made the pronouncement. We even had to make sure that in addition to the empowering and the workshops that we are having with aspiring spaza shop owners and current spaza shop owners, we even have an online portal where they can register themselves. And the third one is responding to what the Minister of COCTA announced, that this is now the issue of the foodborne illnesses is a national disaster. We then activated our own disaster operations center in order to coordinate our efforts. So also we're just trying to align ourselves with all these national and provincial pronouncements that have been made.
What do you mean by quotas for locals?
So one of the things that I think it's considered controversial is the issue of foreign-owned spazas. And we said in Tshwane, because we've got residents here, over 22% that live below poverty line, and we've got 38% of unemployment, what sectors in Tshwane that can be proposed to be reserved for locals? And we then put it in the bylaw to test it with the public if that's something that would work for them. But obviously we do this in consultation with the province as well as national to say, can we do this? Because for us, it's going to help us to resolve the lack of economic opportunities that we're experiencing in the city.
We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately. And thank you so much for your time there. The Executive Mayor of Tshwane, Nasipi Moya, updating us on some of the progress and challenges in the city of Tshwane. It's time now for news headlines with Ondelambana.
Thank you, Sakina. In your news headlines at 12:30 on SAFM, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. Some community members have arrived at Shaft 11 in Silfontein in the northwest to explore ways of providing food, water and medicine to illegal miners underground. The ANC National Working Committee meeting called to discuss the challenges facing KZN provincial leadership is set to begin shortly, and workers at the German car maker Volkswagen will go on strike at all VW plants across Germany today. This after talks collapse between trade unions and managers. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
The rand is trading at 18 rand and 8 cents to the US dollar, 22 rand 96 to the pound sterling, and 18 rand 98 to the euro. The euro currently trading at $1.05, and the dollar's at 150 yen 20. In Brazil, $1 US is trading at 5 real 97. In Russia, at 107 rubles 50. India, 84 rupees 67, and in China, $1 US is changing hands at 7 yuan 27. Markets in Asia are mostly higher today. Hong Kong's Hang Seng ended 0.6% firmer. Mainland China Shanghai Index gained 1.1%. India's markets trading higher, and Japan's Nikkei gained 0.8% at the close of trade. The JSE is mainly higher at midday as well. The All Share Index has gained 0.8% and is at 85,184. The Industrials 25 Index is up 1.3%. Financials have added 0.5%. Top 10 Resources Index has added 0.2%, while the Precious Metals and Mining Index is 0.4% in the red. Now, on the capital market, the yield on the R186 government bond is at 8.18%, and the yield on the R2030 at 8.96%. Markets in Europe mainly lower at this hour. Britain's FTSE 100 is flat. The CAC 40 in France has dropped 0.9%, and Germany's DAX down 0.2%. Looking at commodity prices, gold trading at $2,628 per fine ounce. Platinum's at $940 per ounce, and the price of Brent crude oil at this hour, $72.40 a barrel.
SAFM Sport with John Gericka.
Well, hello.
Can you feel the relief?
Are you relieved about what?
I'm totally relieved. I only work 5 minutes now instead of the thing.
Don't lie. You loved it. You enjoyed it. You told me.
The listeners like, yay!
No. You enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. So all is well.
Okay, thanks. Can I tell you about sports?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to mention Arsenal later. But first, 3 more Premiership rounds this year. Can you believe it? Only 3 left. But they've only played a few games already. Most of the Premiership sides. Sundowns, though, are busy in Africa, so they've only got 2 rounds left. They moved to the top of the table at the weekend. They beat Sekhukhune 3-0. Pirates beaten by Stellenbosch. So Sundowns on 21 points, as are Pirates. But there's a 4-goal difference between the goal differences between the two sides. Sundowns have a goal difference of 14. Pirates have 10. Stellenbosch looking good on 15 points, but that's 6 points off the lead. Let's hear from the Sundowns coach.
At this stage of the season, I don't think it's the most important thing, because it can cause you a lot of bad feelings when it keeps changing like this, and you end up starting to think you are not doing well, and yet it's because maybe you slumped somewhere. You must try to recover somewhere. So far I'm happy with how the team has progressed.
Manchester United won a match yesterday. They beat Everton. Oh, I think I could beat Everton. Chelsea, though, looking good. They beat Aston Villa 3-0. Spurs and Fulham played to 1-1 draw. And Liverpool beat Manchester City 2-0. Big result. So Liverpool have all of the points ahead of Arsenal and Chelsea, both on 25 points. And for some odd reason, I think it's just alphabetical. Arsenal are ahead of Chelsea because everything else is exactly the same.
Yeah, well.
They are 9 points back already. Brighton in fourth. Manchester City 23rd. I said I'd mention Arsenal. They are second for now. Let's hear from Liverpool manager, though, Arne Slot. Is just like the Sundowns coach, not counting his chickens just yet.
It's not about winning once or twice again. If you want to win anything, it's all about consistency. And these teams, like Madrid, like City, but I saw Arsenal yesterday and I saw Chelsea today, they are all capable of getting the same winning streak as we had. So let's not get carried away by 1 or 2 wins. It's all about consistency till the end of the season, keeping the players fit, keeping them playing with this much energy. And like you probably saw today, I only had 5 defenders available, so to win something in the end, that's such a long way to go and so many challenges you have to take. But it's good that we are capable of winning against these teams in our own style.
In Italy, Edoardo Bove is stable in hospital after his harrowing and sudden collapse caused Fiorentina's Serie A clash with champions Inter to be suspended yesterday. Fiorentina said the midfielder, who fell to the turf with 16 minutes on the clock, when the game was still goalless, was under sedation in the intensive care unit at Florence's Careggi Hospital. In rugby news, the Blitzboks knocked out by New Zealand at the quarterfinal stage of the Sevens in Dubai yesterday. The result gives South Africa 10 points after the opening of 7 events. Fiji won. They beat Spain, so Fiji topped the table with 20. Spain 2 points back, Argentina in third. Next round's in Cape Town this weekend. Tickets still available, starting at 350 Rand for a day. This is on Sunday. If you have some money lying around there, Sakina, you can get a spot at what they call the Sun Lounge, where you get premium food and beverage included, Tier 1 seating, all-day access to the lounge, a fast pass ticket entry, access to the lounge's toilet amenities, which is thrown in there. That'll only cost you a measly 8,625 Rand.
What's premium food?
I don't know, but for 8,625 Rand.
A bit of biltong and whatever.
I want lobsters. I want to see.
Yeah, no, you're not getting any of that.
Test cricket stumps on day 2 in Kensington. Bangladesh all out for 164. The Windies in reply 70 for the loss of 1. They trail by 94 runs. Formula 1, there's a production company making a Formula 1 movie. It's going to be released next year starring Brad Pitt. Don't understand, because why would you make a movie when the real life drama is right there?
And it's still unfolding.
Yeah. On Saturday, in qualifying for the Qatar Grand Prix, Mercedes driver George Russell complained that championship winner Max Verstappen was driving too slowly in a build-up lap. Well, Russell and Verstappen called to the race stewards to explain the drama as it was unfolding. Let's hear from the Red Bull driver first, followed by Russell.
It wasn't very enjoyable to see that happen, because I think that's the first time that in a slow lap someone has been penalized. Yeah, I was quite surprised when sitting there in the stewards' room what was all going on. Honestly, very disappointing. Because I think we're all here, we respect each other a lot, and of course I've been in that meeting room many times in my life, in my career, with people that I've raced, and I've never seen someone trying to screw someone over that hard, and that's, for me, I lost all respect.
It's about time somebody gave him a proper fight.
You are going to do that next year?
That's my plan. That's what I want to do. He's a fierce competitor, and Red Bull have done amazing, but. This championship probably should have gone down to the wire. You could argue it probably shouldn't have gone. Max probably wasn't the favourite at one point, and yet he wins it with 3 races to go. So, we need to get our stuff together to make it a bit more challenging.
And finally, a cap worn by Australia's greatest batsman, Don Bradman, will be auctioned in Sydney tomorrow for the tattered baggy green, expected to fetch as much as $260,000 or just short of 5 million Rand. He donned the woolen cap during India's 1947-48 tour of Australia that marked the touring side's first tests on foreign soil after gaining independence. Well, despite considerable fading, signs of insect damage and a torn peak, it's expected to reach, as I said, $260,000 $50,000 at least. Bradman retired from an all-time high test batting average of 99.94. It's been described by Cricket Authority Wisden as the greatest to, quote, have ever graced the gentleman's game.
I'm sure there will be a few people who would like to argue against that.
Yeah, well, bring me Jacques Callis's cap. I think it won't get 4.7 million though, but Callis's cap must be something.
Well, why Callis?
Because
other players, yeah.
Callis? Pollock?
Callis is okay.
Callis is it. I'm going goodbye.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Now I know how to get rid of him. That's John Chirika. He'll be back with more sports news tomorrow. Right, 20 minutes before 1 o'clock. Let's take you back to that ANC story now. The African National Congress National Working Committee meeting has been called to discuss challenges facing the KwaZulu-Natal provincial leadership, and that's taking place at Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg. Now, the meeting follows a visit by the ANC's top brass to KZN last month to meet with the PEC and other regional leaders, and this after the election setback in that province. But let's cross now to our reporter Ntebo Mokobo. Third time lucky, hopefully, and hopefully he is there now. Ntebo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sagina, and good afternoon to the listeners and to Ntadeshilo.
So firstly, has the meeting started?
Yes, Sakina, what happened is that they've got 3 meetings today. It's the meeting of the officials, the top 7 officials, and of course, the president attended, and at some point he was excused. He was rushing somewhere. But from there, then the meeting of the NWC has to start. After that meeting of the NWC, then it's a 2-part meeting, or it's a meeting of the NWC and the KZN PEC. You would recall that Gauteng was expected to be here today, but they've got a sitting of the legislature. That is why they were also excused to attend today's session, but that session has been deferred to tomorrow.
So what exactly is at stake here today? Because we know that last month the ANC top brass made a visit to KZN. But then, of course, we have all the structures, the leaders of all the KZN structures at this particular meeting, if I understood it correctly, in Ntebo. And that is a bit unusual, isn't it?
It's a bit unusual because, the meeting happened anyway. They went there and now they called them down. But you would recall that, there has to be a decision that is taken by the NWC in front of them. And after that decision has been taken, it will be in a form of a recommendation. That recommendation will then be sent to the National Executive Committee to now finally decide what should happen with the provincial executive committee. You would recall that 2 words have been bandied around, that there has to be an enhancement of that PEC. And some people who are for enhancement are saying you must build from the rubbles. You can't disband. If you disband, look at our history. Look at the history of disbandment in the ANC. You disband, you make things worse. So some people are for enhancement, that the Provincial Executive Committee has to be capacitated in terms of how to tackle this issue. And of course, those who are calling for disbandment, they're saying that if it gets disbanded, then it means they'll have to appoint a provincial task team. But the people who are here, for instance, like Begim Tolo, who is the provincial secretary, he's not for disbandment. He said there has to be a collective accountability. If the ANC